The scroll with your name has been sealed in heaven for longer than you can imagine, not because you were unworthy, not because you were forgotten, but because your unveiling was timed to divine sequence. And that time is now. You've felt it. In the silence, in the storms, in the spaces between prayers where it seemed like heaven had no reply. But what if I told you heaven wasn't silent? It was guarding a secret. Welcome to Chosen One's Sanctuary, where we don't just speak to the crowd, we speak to the called. And if you're here, it's because your spirit has been sensing that something hidden is about to be revealed. This is not just a message. It's a prophetic moment, a holy unlocking. Because God cannot keep this sealed any longer. You were never ordinary. You were always marked. And while others ran ahead, your name was being etched into a scroll that no man could open. Until now. Scripture tells us in Revelation chapter 5 that only the Lion of Judah has the authority to open what has been sealed. And right now, in the unseen realm, your scroll is being touched by fire. This is not fiction. This is your assignment. And what was written before time is beginning to echo in your present. Stay with me until the end. Because in the next few minutes, you're going to understand why you were rejected, why the battles got darker, and why your soul could never settle for surface-level living. Something in you has always known the truth, but tonight, heaven confirms it. The unveiling has begun. And what was once sealed is about to speak. You were hidden, not forgotten. There's a difference between being overlooked by people and being hidden by God. The world may have bypassed you, but heaven has never lost track of you. You weren't pushed aside. You were preserved. You weren't denied. You were delayed by divine design. Hiddenness is heaven's most sacred strategy for the ones carrying weight beyond their generation. Moses was hidden in a basket, drifting through enemy waters, not because God forgot him, but because the timing of deliverance had not yet aligned. David was left behind in the field when Samuel came to anoint a king, not because he was unworthy, but because his crown required separation before coronation. Joseph was thrown into a pit and sold into slavery, not because he was abandoned by God, but because his dreams needed time to ferment in darkness before they would rule in light. You too have been shielded in seasons where you felt invisible. People walked past you. Opportunities slipped through. You cried out, and only silence answered. But the silence wasn't rejection. It was a veil. You were cloaked in holy obscurity because premature exposure would have sabotaged the scroll written over your life. To be chosen means to be held back while others run ahead. To be chosen means being cut from the crowd until your spirit can carry the weight of your assignment. You were not behind. You were being built. And what others mistook as stagnation was heaven securing your foundation beneath the surface. Some doors didn't open because they were too small for the magnitude of your calling. Some connections fell away because they were not permitted to follow you into glory. And if you had stayed in places that once accepted you, they would have drained what was meant to be multiplied. The hiddenness protected your oil from the hands of the unprepared. But now, the veil is lifting. The silence is shifting. What once concealed you will now confirm you. The field that held you in obscurity will become the stage that announces you. And as the covering lifts, so too does the mystery behind the scroll that bears your name. Because what has been hidden is about to be revealed, and heaven is no longer keeping it quiet. The scroll with your name has been guarded. Long before your voice found its strength, your name was written in the scrolls of heaven, not scribbled, etched, not in ink, but in eternal record. Revelation chapter 5 tells us of a scroll sealed with 7 seals, one that no man could open. Only the Lion of Judah held the authority. And what was true then is true now. Your life carries words so weighty, they required protection from the realm of darkness until heaven's clock struck the appointed hour. This scroll is not a metaphor. It is a heavenly document, detailed with divine intentions, encoded with your assignments, and sealed against premature activation. Angels have stood guard over it. Demonic forces have warred against it. But they could not alter what God already authored. When you were weeping, the scroll remained sealed. When you questioned your worth, it did not crumble. When you almost walked away, it stayed intact. Because heaven never adjusted its plan to match your pain. Instead, it protected the scroll while the storm trained your spirit. You were not ready to read what was written, not because you lacked faith, but because your wounds would have filtered the words. But now your heart is steadier, your discernment sharper, your spirit stronger, and the seals are beginning to break, one by one. Not in chaos, but in divine sequence. You will begin to notice it. Through dreams, through repeated scriptures, through sudden clarity that feels ancient yet new. And make no mistake, the enemy has known about your scroll longer than you have. That's why resistance followed you from birth. That's why warfare intensified when you drew closer to surrender. He wanted to destroy the reader before the scroll could be read. But God did not give him access. Your name remained guarded, and the scroll remained untouched by enemy hands. Because what is sacred cannot be seized. What is sealed by heaven cannot be rewritten by hell. And now, with trembling air and shifting ground, heaven leans forward. The lion has stepped forward. The scroll is being opened. And what you see next will explain everything that came before. The battle intensified, not because you were breaking down, but because the scroll was being opened, and the enemy heard what you hadn't yet seen. Hell knew who you were before you did. There is a reason your life has never been easy. From childhood, something targeted you. Patterns of betrayal, repeated rejections, unexplainable heaviness. It wasn't your imagination. It was recognition from hell. Because even when you didn't know who you were, the enemy did. Before you spoke a word of purpose, your presence in the earth realm sent signals into the spirit, and darkness responded. Like Herod ordering the slaughter of innocent children just to prevent the rise of one Messiah. Like Pharaoh tightening his grip the moment deliverance drew near. Hell does not wait for the announcement. It attacks the potential. And you, chosen one, have carried dangerous potential from the very beginning. The enemy's attacks weren't just cruelty, they were strategy. His goal was not to merely hurt you, but to prevent your awakening. Because if you ever realized who you were, if you ever read the scroll with your name, if you ever stood in the full weight of your calling, it would unravel his plans not just over your life, but over generations tied to your obedience. And so, the pressure came early. You felt misunderstood in rooms where others fit in easily. You were hit harder by losses others seemed to shake off. You were surrounded by confusion that didn't match your actions. That was not karma. That was collision. Collision between your light and the realm that wanted it extinguished. But what hell never counted on was your endurance. What darkness didn't expect was your ability to keep showing up, even with a broken heart, even after betrayal, even when no one affirmed your worth. The enemy used people to wound you, situations to break you, and silence to isolate you. And yet here you are. The very fact that you are still standing is a spiritual act of war. Because when a chosen one refuses to be buried by what was sent to destroy them, their survival becomes prophecy. Your scars are not proof of defeat. They are evidence of survival. And your survival proves something that cannot be denied. You were chosen before the enemy ever attacked. And now that you know, now that your spirit is waking up, you are dangerous. Because a chosen one in hiding is a target. But a chosen one who has seen the scroll cannot be stopped. And if the scroll is being opened, that means the assignment is being activated. And that means everything the enemy sent to bury you is about to serve as fuel for the fire you're about to carry. What once felt like warfare without cause is now revealing its reason. The attacks made sense because your destiny was never ordinary. Your delays were training for royalty. Chosen one, heaven never wastes a delay. What you called waiting, God called weaving. Every pause, every setback, every long night where the promise felt out of reach, it was never wasted time. It was training ground, not for comfort, for royalty. There is a reason Esther was prepared for 12 months before stepping into the palace. A reason David learned the cadence of the field before he ever touched the crown. A reason Joseph wore chains before robes. You cannot carry kingdom authority without wilderness discipline. You are not just being delayed, you are being distilled. The oil that heaven placed upon your life carries weight, and weight must be matched with wisdom. Your delays weren't denials, they were divine restraint. God knew what the spotlight would cost. He knew that gifting without grounding could destroy you. So he covered you in shadows, let rejection train you, and allowed doors to close, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Had the blessing come too early, it would have fed your insecurity. Had the platform arrived before your pruning, it would have amplified unhealed places. But heaven loved you too much to let you ascend before you were anchored. Some of the relationships that fell apart did so because they couldn't survive the altitude you were called to walk in. Some of the yeses you begged for were withheld, not because you weren't good enough, but because they weren't holy enough for what's coming. And now, the wilderness is shifting. The weight you once carried is becoming the strength you now stand on. What once felt like delay is being revealed as design, because royalty cannot be rushed. And when the crown comes, it must rest on a head shaped by humility, not ambition. That is why you were kept in waiting, because the crown you're called to carry will not only bless you, it will bless nations. The silence of your waiting season was not a punishment. It was the sound of heaven forging royalty in private. And now, the palace is no longer out of reach. It's already in motion. God's voice has been whispering all along. The voice of the Lord rarely thunders at first. For the chosen, it often begins as a whisper, soft, persistent, and easily mistaken for your own thoughts. But chosen one, the whisper was never small. It was sacred. You have not been without guidance. You have not been ignored. You have not been navigating blindly through your storms. Even when it felt like silence surrounded you, the whisper of God was guiding your every step. His voice was present in the restlessness. It was hidden inside closed doors, woven into the gut feeling that stopped you from turning down the wrong path. John 10:27 says, My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me. That verse is not metaphor. It is your map. And though the noise of the world tried to drown it, though confusion clouded your confidence, God kept speaking. Through patterns, through repetition, through the word that showed up 3 times in 1 week. You weren't going crazy. You were being called. The chosen are trained to hear before they are trained to act. Because when the time comes to step forward, you cannot afford to second-guess the voice that leads you. That is why you had to learn in the quiet, why he had to teach you in the fog. He was tuning your spirit like a stringed instrument, fine-tuning your discernment until you could feel him, even when you couldn't trace him. But here is the danger. Ignoring the whisper long enough turns clarity into confusion. Every time you second-guessed what God confirmed, every time you allowed fear to muffle the still small voice, you postponed movement that heaven was ready to bless. This is not condemnation. It's correction wrapped in mercy. You are still on time, but now you must move with certainty. The whisper has become a summons. You will begin to recognize it more clearly now, in conversations, in numbers, in unexpected peace that interrupts panic. The voice you once doubted is being amplified, not in volume, but in certainty. He is speaking again, not because he ever stopped, but because you are ready to hear. You weren't lost. You were learning the language of the whisper. And now that your ears are tuned, the path ahead will no longer feel like wandering. It will feel like recognition. This is the hour of your unveiling. Chosen one, the covering is being lifted. What heaven once concealed is now being revealed. This is not hype. This is not coincidence. This is the fulfillment of divine timing. You are stepping into the hour of your unveiling, and nothing can stop what has been set in motion. Romans 8:19 declares that creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. That word revealed is not about fame. It's about function. It's not about being seen. It's about being sent. You were hidden while your foundation was being fortified. But now, the world will begin to see what heaven already knew. This unveiling is not a spotlight. It's a signal to the spirit realm that your scroll has been opened. A signal to every enemy that warred against your voice that you have survived. And now, the assignment you were born for is rising in clarity. You'll feel it before others recognize it. A shift in your posture, a confidence that doesn't come from ego, but from alignment. Rooms that once felt too heavy for you will now feel like home. Words that once intimidated you will now ignite you. Doors that refused to open are beginning to swing, not because you forced them, but because heaven has declared access. But this unveiling comes with weight. To be revealed means to be recognized, not only by people, but by principalities. You will feel the tension of visibility. You'll sense both favor and friction. That's how you'll know it's real. Because the chosen do not rise into comfort. They rise into conflict, not because they seek it, but because their light disturbs darkness. This is the hour where your name echoes in places your feet haven't touched, where your presence shifts atmospheres, where your yes becomes a catalyst for deliverance in others. And make no mistake, this moment has been in motion long before you arrived. It is not new to heaven. It is simply now to you. And as the veil falls away and the scroll begins to speak, you must decide. Will you shrink to the silence that once defined you? or step fully into the light that now demands you. But with unveiling comes a choice. Every unveiling is an invitation, but every invitation carries a cost. Chosen one, the scroll bearing your name is opening. But to walk into what's written, you must release what no longer belongs to your journey. This is the tension the chosen always face. Heaven offers the crown, but you must lay down the chains. Abraham was called to a new land, but he had to leave behind everything familiar. Not because his homeland was evil, but because it was too small for the promise. The familiar will always fight to hold you, not out of malice, but out of fear. But what feels safe can still become a prison. And you cannot wear the garments of your past and step into the room heaven built for your future. This is where many turn back, not because they doubt the call, but because they fear the cost. But chosen one, to be unveiled, is to be set apart. Not everyone can walk with you. Not every habit can follow you. Not every mindset can survive the altitude of your assignment. And heaven will never force you forward. It only whispers and waits. That is why this moment matters. This is not simply the next chapter. It is the fork in the road. To ignore it is to risk delay. To deny it is to forfeit design. You are not being threatened. You are being trusted. Trusted to walk away from comfort. Trusted to silence the familiar voices. Trusted to say yes, even when your hands are still trembling. Because obedience has always been the doorway between promise and possession. This is your moment of release. Release the bitterness that kept your heart heavy. Release the fear that told you you weren't ready. Release the guilt that chained you to your old self. The scroll has already been opened. Now it waits for your agreement. And until you release what binds you, you cannot rise into what's written. Because the scroll can only be walked out by the version of you that's no longer afraid of the cost. Your scroll carries a dangerous assignment. Chosen one, the scroll bearing your name is not poetic. It is prophetic. It is not decorative. It is dangerous. Because what is written over your life carries weight in the spirit realm. And the moment you step into it, everything shifts. The moment you say yes, darkness begins to tremble. This is why the warfare intensified. This is why betrayal came early, and heartbreak came often. You weren't just being attacked, you were being studied. Because your assignment isn't just personal, it's generational. Your obedience is meant to break cycles that have held your bloodline captive for centuries. Your yes is the answer to someone else's unanswered prayer. Your life is not small because your mission is not safe. The prophet Jeremiah heard it directly from the mouth of God. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. That wasn't a metaphor. It was a heavenly job description. And yours is no less real. Before you ever cried your first breath into this world, heaven assigned you territory. And now, that territory is calling for you. But the assignment isn't convenient. It will cost you comfort, clarity, and sometimes even companionship. It will wake you in the middle of the night. It will pull on you when others are relaxing. It will ask you to pray when no one else is watching, to walk away when no one else understands, to speak truth when silence would feel safer. To ignore this assignment is not just to delay your purpose. It is to leave gaps in the walls heaven asked you to repair. Someone's freedom is tied to your obedience. Someone's awakening is connected to your yes. This is why the scroll had to be sealed until now. because what you carry could not be released until you were ready to handle the responsibility. And now, the seals are breaking. And the spirit realm is watching. Angels are moving. Assignments are aligning. Because the one chosen for the task is no longer sleeping, you are rising. The scroll does not wait for applause. It waits for surrender. Because once you realize how dangerous your assignment truly is, you'll stop asking why it hurt and start asking where you're being sent. The evidence is about to manifest. Chosen one, what has been hidden in the spirit is about to break into the natural. The scroll is no longer theory. The fire on your life is no longer invisible. Heaven is moving, and the signs will no longer be subtle. The evidence of your calling is about to manifest, unmistakable, undeniable, and uncontainable. There will be a shift in how people respond to you. Those who once overlooked you will feel drawn to what they cannot name. Those who dismissed you will watch doors open for you that they cannot explain. It will not be because of your strategy, your resume, or your connections. It will be because the scroll has been activated. The alignment is already happening, quietly, precisely, divinely. Just as Joseph went from prisoner to palace in one day, and Esther went from orphan to queen with one yes, so too will your unveiling seem sudden to those around you. But it will not be sudden to heaven. This has been in motion for years. The delay was your training. The wilderness was your consecration. And now, the manifestation will be your confirmation. This is why you must not doubt the signs that begin to appear. When a door opens that you didn't knock on, don't question it. Walk through it. When favor finds you where you felt forgotten, don't shrink. Stand in it. Because this is not coincidence. It is confirmation. And heaven never reveals what it does not intend to release. But here is the warning. If you treat this hour like every other hour, you will miss the gates being opened in your name. The evidence will not linger forever. It comes in alignment with obedience. What is about to manifest must be matched with movement. You'll know it's real because your spirit will recognize it before your mind understands it. Peace will precede the invitation. Boldness will rise without effort. And you will step into rooms that once intimidated you with authority you didn't have before. The evidence is not coming to convince others. It is coming to confirm heaven's word over your life. And once it arrives, you will never again need to explain what God already declared. There are some moments when heaven speaks not through thunder, but through unveiling. And this is one of them. Chosen one, your scroll was never forgotten. It was hidden, sealed for a time, protected in silence, kept from the hands of your enemies, because what was written inside was never meant for casual eyes. It was meant for appointed time, and you have arrived at that hour. The mystery of being chosen is not only about survival, it's about recognition, not just by people, but by God. The delay didn't diminish your calling. The silence didn't cancel your name. The pain didn't rewrite your purpose. All of it, every trial and tear, was sharpening your spirit for what has now been activated. And here is the deeper truth. Being chosen doesn't always look like being celebrated. Sometimes it looks like being misunderstood, like being pressed, like carrying revelation no one else can feel, until heaven opens the scroll and begins to speak what your spirit always knew. The calling was never light, but the weight of it proves the worth of it. There is no going back, not after this, because once the scroll begins to speak, The old version of you no longer fits the assignment. Your identity has been sealed in eternity. Your mission has been confirmed in the Spirit. And now, the steps ahead of you are already aligned with the promises spoken over you. This is your prophetic seal. You are not wandering. You are being revealed. You are not forgotten. You are remembered by name. You are not ordinary. You are chosen. And nothing on earth or in hell can alter what has already been written by the hand of God. If this word has stirred something inside you, if you felt the scroll opening as the truth found you, I invite you to act in alignment. Like this message as a sign of agreement. Share it with someone whose spirit is awakening. And subscribe to Chosen One's Sanctuary so you don't miss the next unveiling in this divine journey. And in the comments, leave what resonated most. Share what part of your scroll is beginning to speak, what confirmations are rising, or even what questions still remain. This space is not a crowd. It is a remnant, a sanctuary, a gathering of those marked for more. Until the next scroll is opened, walk in what's already been revealed. You are chosen, and it's going to happen.